A very good morning to everybody and welcome to an exciting 4 days ahead. I'd love to share much more about what we are going to do, but my lips are sealed because it's going to be a surprise. But I'd like to say that it's been an eventful year for the Global Education and Leadership Foundation, that's tGELF. We have started a number of new initiatives. So we are, Mr. Shiv Khemka makes sure, our chairman makes sure that we are breathless and running and achieving as much as we can. I'm delighted to see actually so many young faces in the room because I think our future lies in the hands of you young people. And I would like to end my little introduction today by leaving you all with this idea that, we all talk about leadership and leaders, but what does that really entail? It's not just about being up there and leading and being visible. It's also about how do you reach out to people and how do you get people to buy into your ideas. Gandhiji was such a great leader because the entire nation bought into his idea. So you are as good a leader as you are able to motivate your followers. So all you young people, that's the message that tGELF has out for you. And a very, very warm welcome to an exciting 4 days ahead. And I would like to now request Mr. Shiv Khemka to come up and continue with this discourse.
Thanks, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. It's great to have all of you here. Another year has passed and another life event is happening, and I'm so excited, and our whole team is very excited because this is going to be a very unique life. In the past, we've done lots of different experimentation, but now we're really starting on a very important journey. As you all know, the United Nations agreed with global leaders on something called the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 of them, to try and commit all ourselves as citizens of the planet to end extreme poverty on the planet by 2030, 15 years to count down to the end of extreme poverty. And we believe we can do it. And we believe you can do it. And we believe we as a team need to take ownership of actually doing it, rather than saying they will do it, the government will do it, someone else will do it. And so this is really the beginning of an intention taken by all of us to commit ourselves with all our spirit, mind, body, and soul force to actually commit to ending extreme poverty during our lifetimes, hopefully, God willing, within the next 15 years. So that is really what this is about. And this is the beginning of that journey. And so all of us who are here are really blessed because we're taking an intention that will have huge force over the next 15 years if we really commit ourselves to it. And I keep talking about intention, because what is intention? How do you create anything? You have an intention, that's what allows you to wake up in the morning. You have an intention, it allows you to do work. Intention is the root, it's the foundation. So it depends what is your intention. There's a famous story told to me by a dear friend of mine that a man is walking and he sees these people building something. And he asks one of them, "What are you building?" And he says, "Sir, I'm building a wall." Then he asks the next person, "What are you building?" He says, "Sir, I'm building a cathedral." Now, both those people are doing the same activity, but one of them is building a cathedral, the other is building a wall. So the question is, what are we building? We're building a world that will not have the inequity it has today, we hope. We're building a world where extreme poverty has ended. And so if we take the intention of building something great and beautiful and commit our energy to that, I believe we will actually achieve great things. The other reason this year is very different is because for the first time, our foundation is now 10 years old. And we started with the intention 10 years ago that the world needs a better quality of leader. And unfortunately, when you look at leaders, and you look at it all over the world, right now the US elections is in our face every day. It's like in a reality TV show. And one wonders and one says, look, in the country with the greatest higher education system on the world, is that the best quality of leader that they can provide the planet? Because the US leadership actually does affect the planet. And we need to think hard about what is it in a system of education globally where the US represents the best in higher education on the planet. Why is it that we're still unable to provide the quality of leader that we need on our planet to solve the intractable, massive issues that the world faces? A planet where 0.7% of the world's population shares 41% of the world's wealth. A planet where 8% of the world's population shares 83% of the world's wealth is deeply inequitable. And we need to find a way to correct that. All of us who are part of the 8% talk about correcting that, but in my opinion, in my humble opinion as a businessman, I don't believe trickle down is enough. I don't believe just creating businesses and employing a few people and hoping it will reach the bottom of the pyramid. I don't believe it's working. I don't believe it's working fast enough. Yes, we have, as capitalists and as a capitalistic movement in the last 30, 50 years, moved 2 billion people out of poverty. It's been the most successful model so far. But what about the 4 or 5 billion people that live at the bottom of the pyramid or the middle of the pyramid? How do we address that challenge? How do we get the 300 million people in India living in extreme poverty to lead decent, just lives? How do we do that? What role and responsibility do we have as people? So I'm a great believer in leadership. So we started this journey 10 years ago and we said that the Gandhijis and the Aung San Suu Kyis and the Nelson Mandelas and the Martin Luther Kings, the great leaders we believe in, exist. They exist amongst us. But for some reason, the system doesn't allow them to rise and thrive and work as teams and build what needs to be built on the planet. A planet that doesn't fight, that doesn't have all the problems you're seeing today in the Middle East, the problems you're seeing around the world with terrorism. Every day you switch on the television and you're horrified by what you see. Some other bomb somewhere, more people killed somewhere. And it's really a reflection of the inequity on the planet, surfacing in different ways. We need leaders that rise above nations, leaders that understand and respect all the world's great wisdom traditions. We need a quality of leader that can actually be people we look up to and are willing to give our lives for. Gandhiji was that kind of leader, and so I keep referring to Gandhiji. And where are the Gandhis amongst us? Do we have the courage to be Gandhi? Do we have the courage to devote our lives to work with the Gandhis amongst us? And we believe they exist. We believe those Gandhis are right here in this room today. And we believe we're there to support and help those people actually make a real difference. The 4 foundations, the pillars of our foundation, as you know, are leadership skills. Leadership requires leadership skills. And all of you have them, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And all of you will develop them over your lives, I'm sure. The second quality is decisive action. People who just talk about things and don't do anything, that's no good. There's the famous story about this man going to the church every day and saying, God, I'm very poor, please help me win the lottery. And he says it again and again and again until one day the clouds part and God says, for God's sake, buy a lottery ticket. We've got to do something. We've got to take action. So without taking action, we're not going to get the results. The third pillar, but you know, leadership and bias for action, decisive action, that's not good enough because Hitler had those 2 things. Other leaders that have caused great destruction on our planet had those 2 things. So the third pillar is ethics. We need people that are deeply ethical, people that are committed to a life of ethics, and not ethics according to any particular religious or wisdom tradition, but human ethics. Treat others the way you want to be treated yourself, and so on. And the fourth pillar, those 3 pillars are not enough because you can be ethical, you can be a leader, you can have a bias for action, but you can be selfish. Where at the end of the day, you really care about your company, your city, your town, your community, etc. That's not good enough today. We need leaders that rise above that and have the 4th critical pillar, which is altruism. People that deeply see the human family as one family. We need leaders that rise to that height. And I believe those leaders are here. Our curriculum today, which we created with Harvard University and Columbia Teachers College, 10 years ago now reaches 3 million people in 14 countries. Our target is 100 million people within the next 3 to 5 years. And the intention is there, and I'm sure that God will help us to achieve those targets. And with your help, we will do that. LEAD, leadership, ethics, altruism, and decisive action. Those are our 4 fundamental pillars. And we're very, very blessed that people all around the world have risen up to this call. People have come from all over the world for this event and have been coming every year. People all over the world, where we go, stretch out their hands to help us, because actually at the end of the day, we are all human beings with the same sufferings, the same problems, the same issues, and the same human family that unites us and binds us. So, of the 3 million young people, we had a call which said, we don't want to join Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, McKinsey when we leave college. We want to continue our leadership journey. How do we do that? And we thought very hard. We said, can we as an organization find a way to create a leadership journey for a small group of committed individuals that are deeply committed to a life of ethical, altruistic leadership? And we thought about it for a year or 2, and then we decided, okay, we're going to try. We have the intention, we want to do it, and we're going to try. And so this is the first year. We're starting a new program called the Leadership Development Program. We sent out, it's available for young people that have graduated from college and under the age of 30. And the program is a full-time, 2-year, intensive 2-year leadership development program. And it has 6 branches, because we thought long and hard, and we said, if we had been given the tremendous responsibility of nurturing and curating great leaders, what would we do? How would we train them? What would be the core curriculum for great leadership? And we said the core curriculum would have a few critical branches. The first branch is business, because business drives much of the planet. Corporations, business interests, and so on have driven much of the tremendous wealth creation on the planet. And instead of fighting it, one needs to actually embrace it and understand the best of what business has done. Create jobs, employment, opportunities, technologies, and many great things. We need to understand it, but we also need to understand the perils of business, the other side of the equation, where without ethics, business is like a ship without a rudder. As we head into the future of technology, of all the types of things happening in technology, I spent 4 days in Silicon Valley visiting artificial intelligence companies, and it's tremendous what's going to happen. But in the wrong hands, it's tremendously disheartening what can happen. So there's an ethical element in all of this that leaders need to be aware of, whether it's biotechnology, whether it's technology, whether it's the ethics of business, corruption, and many other things. It's very important for young leaders today to understand business, to be part of that framework, and then to do something about it. The second branch of the tree is politics and public service. Again, a very critical branch. In that branch, in business, by the way, in the first thing, these young leaders who've joined us, we will help them start companies. We want them to become rich. Because if they don't become rich, they spend their life trying to make a living rather than living a life. And we want them to live a life. We want them to live a life of meaning, of service, of leadership. And so we're going to help them, God willing, become wealthy. So they don't have to worry about wealth, which is a mundane thing at the end of the day, as something that stops them from living their passion and living their life. The second is politics and public service. In politics and public service, we have committed ourselves to training these people by exposing them to the greatest leaders on the planet. So we've been very fortunate. We have some great political leaders in our country. Chandrababu Naidu ji in Andhra Pradesh state, who's building a new state. So we're going to work very closely with Andhra Pradesh government, with his Economic Development Board. In fact, the head of the Economic Development Board is going to be here tomorrow with us and spend a day with us. And we're going to work very closely with them on how do we actually build a state, how do we run a state, how do we work with the government directly. Instead of waiting 20 years to figure out how that's done and going through IAS and being there after 20 years, we want to teach people right away because there's no time. Every year we're adding 25 million people to our country. In 30 years we're going to add 3 billion people to the planet. There is no time. There's a sense of urgency. This is a burning platform. The third branch is media, technology, art, which creates voice. We need young people to understand, young leaders, the leaders today who are going to become great leaders in the future, to create voice. How do we create voice on the planet? Gandhiji created voice in an era when there was no technology. Radio, print. Can you imagine what voice Gandhiji could create on the planet today with Twitter and Facebook and all these other social media tools that exist, technology, communications, travel, it will be totally different. So we need to think about that, and we've tied up with Global Citizen, and we're organizing an event towards the end of this year where we're going to have an event for mass social mobilization, focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals 4, 5, and 6. And you're going to hear much more about that in the next 3 days. The fourth branch of the tree is global security. If young people and leaders today don't understand the vectors of global security, they will not really be great leaders. Because unfortunately, we live in a world of tremendous inequity, of all kinds of problems, all kinds of issues. And unfortunately, terrorism in every country now is becoming a reality. People are doing very, very sad things. And we need to find ways to create light. And that's not just about beating people up, putting them in prison, but it's also about educating them and finding ways to bring compassion and light into their lives so that the darkness evaporates. And that's not going to be easy to do. But the young leaders need to find ways to do that. I always remember the story of Gandhiji. When he started the Khadi movement in India, his biggest concern was for the mill workers in Lancaster who would lose their jobs. That was his concern. And he went to Lancaster and met the mill workers. And instead of them beating him up and being angry with him, they understood his point of view, because what he was doing was just. And they understood and they embraced him and they loved him. So it's about reaching that human layer, and great leaders have the ability to do that. And I think many of you in this room who are part of Leaders Forum and who are part of this journey of the 11 will actually embark on that journey over the next 2 years. The fifth branch is the branch of social service. Now, everyone in this room is involved in social service, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And we know that that's a very important branch. But again, to learn about that, to understand that branch in the context of all these other branches is what will make your activity really useful. So we're going to be working very hard on education, because we believe that's the root of many issues in the country. We're working with the ministry, we're working with our own curriculum, we're working with ed tech companies, we're working with Brookings Center for Universal Education, we're working with the World Economic Forum, Global Agenda Council for Education, and many other partners to really go on this journey to actually figure out ways to change the education system state by state, school by school, and to harness the tremendous power of technology that will actually create a tsunami in the education world the way it has created a tsunami in the e-commerce world or in the commerce world. So we believe that deeply, and we think education, health, and all these things, there's a potential for tremendous change. And finally, the sixth branch is a branch that I'm personally very passionate about, because I believe great leaders emerge from spiritual depth. So it's the branch of spiritual wisdom. We believe great leaders need to deepen their spirituality and their spiritual understanding of the human family, because one can easily get caught up in the fact that I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew, I'm a Christian, and I don't understand these other communities, and I'm not able to actually connect with them. And so the young leaders, the 11 who have chosen to join us, will actually go through a journey where they will meet great spiritual teachers in every spiritual tradition, and spend time learning about each spiritual tradition with some depth, with some open-mindedness, and with a culture that at the end of the day, as Gandhiji said, each religion is like a river leading to the same ocean. So the thing to focus on is the ocean and not the river. So we're very excited that these 11 people have joined us. Many of them have come from very far away. Many of them have come and taken a big risk to be with us because they don't know much about us. Some people are from the Leaders Forum and have known us over the last 5, 6, 7 years, but many people don't. Some of these young people have come because people recommended them, people who know our program very well and said, this is a person I recommend, and I think this person will be someone that can actually do this. And you're going to meet them all in a minute or two. I'd like to leave you with a final thought, and that is that it's always impossible until it's done. So how will we end extreme poverty? It's impossible. How will we do this? How will we make India free of the British Empire? It's impossible, etc., etc. It's always impossible until it's done. So we need to have the confidence and the faith and the entrepreneurial mindset which says we can do it. We need to do it. And we need to have that confidence and faith in ourselves. And we need to have an attitude that some nations have built better than others. And I want to take an example. I have my dear friend here, Rabbi Avram Berkovitz, who's flown from New York, and a nation that in its own way reflects this, and many nations reflect this. I was in Israel recently, and I was amazed to see how the productivity of the nation, it's a very small nation, 8 million people. It's less than half of Delhi. Of those 8 million people, only about 2 million people are actually active economic actors in that environment. And of those people, they take a day and a half off every week. They're not working 24/7. They stop and they go back to their roots and say, no, we must ground ourselves again and think about our lives in context. And I heard a little joke which I'll share with you. So these 3 people are traveling on a train, an Israeli, and this could be said about Indians and many other nations, but certain type of mindset, and a Chinese gentleman and an American, and they're on a train, and a journalist asks them, sir, excuse me, what is your opinion about the food shortages? And the American says, a shortage? What does that mean? I don't understand the word shortage. And the Chinese gentleman says, opinion? I'm not sure what that means. What does opinion mean? And then the Israeli person says, excuse me? What does excuse me mean? So don't ask, excuse me, just do it. So in the next few days, just do it, just do good. Okay, so we're delighted to have all of you with us, and now you're going to see what we're going to do over the next 3 days. And we're really honored to have so many friends from around the world, partners in this journey, people that we deeply admire and respect. I was recently in UAE, met with Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak, who's a dear friend, and he's someone that also believes deeply in this program and started this program, and we've seen this program grow from strength to strength, and we have a delegation from the UAE here with us. We're honored to have you, and many other people that I haven't recognized, but we're really excited to have you, and we'll spend time in the next 3 days together. Thank you very much.
tGELF, leading the change.